Hello everybody, this is Kate at the Library of Whispers, and today's video is a response to various requests for me to do more soft-spoken videos, which of course I'm happy to do. So I thought today we would take a look at this guide to Chatsworth, which is a stately home in Bakewell in Derbyshire in the UK. And I visited Chatsworth a couple of years ago, and it's the home of the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire. So let's take a look. So this is the current Duke and Duchess, and they say, "For 5 centuries, members of my family have welcomed guests from around the world. You are following in the footsteps of Queen Victoria, an entire school of wartime evacuees and actors, such as Sir Anthony Hopkins and Keira Knightley on location, to name but a few. As you will discover, each generation has made its own changes at Chatsworth. Some I find inspiring, some bewildering, but all of them intriguing. Every visitor has a different view, which is what brings the place to life. On this page, my wife and I have chosen some of the things that most fascinate us about Chatsworth. We hope you will enjoy finding your own favourite things with the help of this book." So here we have a who's who of the residents of Chatsworth House, going back to the 16th century. So it says here, Chatsworth has been handed down through 16 generations of the Cavendish family, from father to eldest son, or the nearest male heir. So here we start with Bess of Hardwick, 1527 to 1608, and she first married Robert Barlow. Second, Sir William Cavendish, 1505 to 57. Then she married third, William St. Low, and fourth, George Talbot, 6th Earl of Shrewsbury, or Shrewsbury, depending on how you want to say it. Bess married 4 times and rose from the gentry to the highest aristocracy. She and Sir William built Chatsworth with the money he made in the service of King Henry VIII. And then we got to the first Earl of Devonshire, William Cavendish, 1552 to 1625. And he married Anne Keithley, who died in 1625. And he was the second son of Bess of Hardwick. So Bess's second son was granted an earldom. As there was already an Earl of Derby, he was given a vacant title, Devonshire. So the second Earl of Devonshire was William Cavendish, 1590 to 1628, and he married the Honourable Christian Bruce, 1595-1675. Christian rebuilt the family fortune after the extravagant Earl's death. And the third Earl of Devonshire, William Cavendish, 1617 to 1684, and he married Lady Elizabeth Cecil, 1619 to 89. The Cavendish family supported King Charles I in the English Civil War. After the king's defeat, the third Earl narrowly avoided losing Chatsworth to Parliament. And here we have the fourth Earl and first Duke of Devonshire. Again, William Cavendish, so we can see a theme developing here, 1640 to 1707, and he married Lady Mary Butler, 1646 to 1710. The fourth Earl rebuilt Chatsworth as a Baroque palace, a statement of his power and ambition. He helped bring King William III and Queen Mary II to the throne. They awarded him the dukedom in 1694. And then we go on to the second Duke of Devonshire, again William Cavendish, 1673 to 1729, who married the Honourable Rachel Russell, 1674 to 1725. The Duke was an active politician and the family's first serious collector of paintings, drawings, gems, and coins. The third Duke of Devonshire, William Cavendish, 1698 to 1755. And he married Catherine Hoskins, who died in 1777. Following a disastrous fire in 1733, the Duke rebuilt his London home, Devonshire House, in the new Palladian style, promoted by the architect Richard Boyle, 3rd Earl of Burlington, 1694-5 to 1753. The Duke's son married the Earl's daughter and heiress. The fourth Duke of Devonshire, William Cavendish, 1720 to 1764. And he married Lady Charlotte Boyle, 1731 to 54. Charlotte's inheritance brought the Cavendishes greater wealth and immense collections of fine art. The Duke was briefly Prime Minister. He hired Capability Brown to improve the landscape, park, and James Payn to build the bridge and stables at Chatsworth. And then we move on to the fifth Duke of Devonshire, William Cavendish, 1748 to 1811, and he married Lady Georgiana Spencer, 1757 to 1806, and his second marriage was to Lady Elizabeth Foster, 1757 to 1824. Devonshire House became the centre of Whig party politics, and Georgiana, or Georgiana, or however you want to say it, reigned as Queen of Society and Fashion. For 2 decades, she and the Duke lived in a ménage à trois with Elizabeth Foster, who married the Duke after Georgiana's death. The sixth Duke of Devonshire was William Spencer Cavendish, 1790 to 1858. The Bachelor Duke modernised Chatsworth and built a new wing for his collections of books, minerals and contemporary sculpture. His head gardener, Joseph Paxton, redesigned and enlarged the garden. And the seventh Duke of Devonshire was William Cavendish, 1808 to 91, and he married Lady Blanche Howard, 1812 to 1840. So she was quite young when she died. After the extravagances of the 6th Duke, his second cousin, the 7th Duke, struggled to restore the family fortunes. His own investments, including development in Barrow-in-Furness, eventually caused greater debts. And here we have the 8th Duke of Devonshire, Spencer Compton Cavendish, 1833 to 1908, and he married Louise von Alton, 1832 to 1911. The Duke refused 3 invitations from Queen Victoria to become Prime Minister. The new inheritance tax forced him to make major sales of the family's land, especially in Ireland. The 9th Duke of Devonshire was Victor Cavendish, 1868 to 1938, and he married Lady Evelyn Fitzmaurice, 1870 to 1960. So we're getting quite recent now. The nephew of the childless 8th Duke improved Chatsworth and was Governor-General of Canada from 1916 to 1921. He sold Devonshire House and Chiswick House in London at a time when many aristocratic London houses were being sold. The 10th Duke of Devonshire was Edward Cavendish, 1895 to 1950, and he married Lady Mary Cecil, 1895 to 1988. The Duke invited a girls' boarding school to use Chatsworth during the Second World War. His eldest son William, 1917 to 1944, was killed in action. William's wife Kathleen Kennedy, 1920 to 48, the sister of President John F. Kennedy, died in an aeroplane accident. The 11th Duke of Devonshire was Andrew Cavendish, 1920 to 2004. He married the Honourable Deborah Mitford, born 1920. After inheriting with 80% tax on all his land and possessions, the Duke created the Chatsworth House Trust to protect Chatsworth and its collections for future generations of visitors. And then we come to the present 12th Duke of Devonshire, Peregrine Cavendish, born 1944, and he married Amanda Haywood Lonsdale, born 1944. The present Duke and Duchess look after Chatsworth with the Chatsworth House Trust and pay rent to live in the house. Their master plan is restoring and enhancing Chatsworth for the future. They have 3 children and 10 grandchildren. This is the map. So here is the house, and these are they call it the park. The park is open to walkers throughout the year. So let's take a look at the history. Chatsworth's first park occupied the steep slope and high ground behind the house. Bess of Hardwick was born in Derbyshire, bought Hardwick Old Hall and persuaded her second husband, Sir William Cavendish, to buy Chatsworth in 1549. She lived at Chatsworth while he spent time at the Royal Court in London, a 6-day journey away. Derbyshire was a wild and isolated place. Bess built a new house and tamed the landscape around it for the production of food, from fruit in the orchards to carp in the fish ponds, rabbits in the warren, and deer in the park. The park was also a status symbol, a place for hunting and recreation, and a site for timber production. Mary, Queen of Scots, was brought to Chatsworth several times as Queen Elizabeth I's prisoner. There is an unproven story that she used this platform, Queen Mary's Bower, as an exercise ground. The fourth Duke of Devonshire swept away the working landscape to create a new, less formal park. Much of the formal gardens around the house had already been removed by the third Duke. He hired Lancelot Capability Brown, who is here on the far left, to create an imposing man-made setting for the house, but one that gave the illusion of natural countryside. Brown's vast schemes of earth movement and tree planting took more than 8 years and involved 25,000 man-days of labour. He modified the course of the River Derwent and demolished the part of Edensor village within view of the house. James Paine, who is here, 1777 to 89, designed the new bridges, the stable block and watermill. And it says here, this landscape was farmed for many centuries before Capability Brown created the park. The system of ploughing used by medieval farmers has left its shadow in the form of earthworks called ridge and furrow. This is a map of the house. House plan. Now let's take a look at the collection. The Devonshire collection is the creation of one family over 16 generations. It has evolved and continues to grow out of their tastes, passions and inheritance, from the smallest engraved gem to the largest outdoor sculpture. The objects are as varied as the personalities of the family members who collected them. They include royal gifts and discoveries made on the Grand Tour of Europe. Many, like this painting on the left, which I guess is this one, by Cornelis de Vos, 1584 to 1681, once furnished other houses owned by the family, such as Devonshire House in London below. The first serious collector in the family was the second Duke of Devonshire, who purchased many old master drawings and paintings, including the Adoration of the Magi above, by Paolo Veronese, 1528 to 88. In 1748, two great family collections were united by the marriage of the future fourth Duke and the Lady Charlotte Boyle, daughter of the architect and collector, the third Earl of Burlington. The Burlington inheritance included Burlington House and Chiswick House, left, in London, and all their contents. The fifth Duke and Duchess, Georgiana, commissioned portraits from eminent artists such as Sir Joshua Reynolds, 1723 to 92, a tradition continued by the 11th Duke of Devonshire and Duchess, Deborah, with artists including Lucian Freud, 1922 to 2011, and Pietro Annigoni, 1910 to 88. In scale, no one had more impact than the Sixth Duke, a connoisseur of books and sculpture, and a magpie collector of fascinating objects, from a jewelled hawk below and gold dog collars to King Henry VIII's Rosary. And this is a quote: "My wife and I were both brought up by parents who collected, and so it is not surprising that we too have been at least accumulators of works of art, like these bronze greyhounds by Nicola Hicks above. Whether we are collectors is something for others to decide." The Duke of Devonshire. So here we have paintings. Trial by Jury by Sir Edward Landseer, circa 1840. This is one of hundreds of paintings in the Devonshire collection. When the Sixth Duke bought it, he asked Landseer to add the Duke's own pet spaniel, Boney, to the left of the French poodle. I guess this is it. I don't know whether you can see that, it's quite small. Portraits, Georgiana or Georgiana, or however you want to say it, Duchess of Devonshire by Thomas Gainsborough, circa 1784. The Sixth Duke of Devonshire, circa 1852, I guess. Portraits are a method of recording and displaying family history. The fifth Duke and Georgiana commissioned the most famous artists of their time to paint their portraits. Their son was the first Duke of Devonshire to have his photograph taken, soon after the technique had been invented. Sculpture. Sculpture Gallery, here. Designed by Sir Geoffrey Wyatville, completed by 1832. The sculpture collection in the house, garden and park spans over 4,000 years. The Sixth Duke built a new gallery to display his collection, with innovative skylights and locally quarried sandstone walls to set off the marble sculptures. And furniture. Seaweed Marquetry Cabinet by Garrett Jensen, circa 1690 to 95. Different generations of the family have bought furniture from the finest craftsmen of their time. Jensen, royal cabinet maker to 4 English monarchs, made furniture such as this cabinet for the first Duke. Precious metals. Silver chandelier, 1690s. The first Duke spent vast amounts of money on silver and silver-gilt objects. They are rare survivals, as it was common to melt down precious metals and remake them into new fashionable objects. Ceramics. Delft Flower Pyramid, circa 1690. The first Duke and Duchess began Chatsworth ceramics collection with items of blue and white Delft ware, made fashionable by their friend Queen Mary II. Books. Illustrated manuscript, 1465 to 68. There are over 30,000 books at Chatsworth, from illuminated manuscripts on vellum, calfskin, to the great illustrated botanical books of the 19th century. Minerals. Amethyst. Duchess Georgiana began a family tradition of mineral collecting in the 1780s. Duchess Deborah gave this amethyst geode to the 11th Duke as a Christmas present. Textiles. Tapestry Mortlake Works, circa 1695. Chatsworth has many textiles in its collection and its own team of textile conservators. This is the North Entrance Hall, North Sub-Corridor. The first Duke's house. The first Duke spent 20 years rebuilding the Elizabethan house, which had become old-fashioned and was unstable when he inherited it. He earned his title by helping bring King William III, 1650 to 1702, and Queen Mary II, 1666 to 94, to the English throne during the Glorious Revolution of 1688. By the time of his death, he had turned Chatsworth into a palace fit for a royal visit, but to his disappointment, William and Mary never visited. The Duke was helped by the architects William Talman, 1650 to 1719, and Thomas Archer, 1668 to 1743, and possibly designed the west front himself. He devoted an entire suite of rooms, the state apartment for the King and Queen to use, and covered many walls and ceilings with symbolic paintings to flatter them. He was inspired by the grandest European palaces at the time, which were Baroque, a theatrical style of architecture designed to amaze visitors and impress them with his cosmopolitan taste. This is the painted hall, which is a remarkable space. The first Duke's guests would have crossed the courtyard to reach the painted hall. Replacing Bess of Hardwicke's Great Hall, this was the first step in the journey to the state apartment. The murals show scenes from the life of the Roman ruler Julius Caesar, 100 to 44 BC, painted by Louis Laguerre, 1663 to 1721. Visitors then would have recognised these as a tribute to King William III, England's new military hero. In 1779, the 5th Duke of Devonshire and Duchess Georgiana replaced the gritstone floor with black and white marble. The 6th Duke later added the ground floor windows and 2 galleries and replaced the steep double staircase with a more gentle single flight. He admitted that the former steps here were decidedly more handsome. In 1912, the 9th Duke of Devonshire and Duchess Evelyn built the present staircase, retaining a single gallery. Before ascending to the state apartment, visitors today see the first Duke's grotto and chapel. This is the courtyard. The chapel corridor. And the chapel itself. private stairs and state apartment. These stairs lead to the state apartment, the most important rooms in the first Duke's house. He built this series of rooms for King William III and Queen Mary II to use on a royal visit. As in royal palaces, this would be a public space, and strict rules would control how far a person could progress down the enfilade of rooms to the King and Queen. Each is more private and ornate than the last. The staircase is designed to build suspense as visitors ascend to the state apartment. They are cantilevered, so artfully contrived that they seem to hang in the air. That's a quote from Dr. Charles Lee, 1700. Jean Tigeot, active 1689 to 1712, iron worker to William III, made the gilded iron balustrade. Verrio's painted ceiling flows into Watson's carvings on the upper parts of the walls, where the Duke abandoned murals for garden sculptures by Siba. However, you want to pronounce that really. Kibba, I guess. The Great Chamber. This is absolutely magnificent when you actually, if you ever get the chance to visit Chatsworth. It's an amazing ceiling, with wood carving all the way around the walls. So I think we'll finish here with the state drawing room, and this is quite a large book. Can always maybe revisit this again sometime. So, state drawing room. Important courtiers would have withdrawn to the state drawing room from the great chamber. The walls are hung with tapestries made in around 1635 by Flemish weavers at the Mortlake Works in London. They show scenes of the Acts of the Apostles taken from drawings by Raphael, 1483 to 1520, King George III, 1738 to 1820, and Queen Charlotte, 1744 to 1818, used the two thrones at their coronation and gave them to the fourth Duke, their Lord Chamberlain, as a perquisite or perk of the job. So I think, as I said, I'll leave it here, and we can perhaps revisit this brochure guidebook of this very grand and rather remarkable stately home, Chatsworth. I hope you've enjoyed this soft-spoken reading, and this is Kate at the Library of Whispers. Thank you so much for popping by, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye bye.